Have you ever wondered sometimes, why does God put us in these hopeless situations? Maybe it's not you, maybe it's someone you love, someone who's close to you, but they're in an impossible situation. I believe God does that so that when it's all said and done, He's the only one who'll get the glory. During these times, it is so important to cling to the promises of God. If you're new here, let me introduce myself. My name is Angela with Entrusted with the Journey. I make faith-based content for women, and my hope is that I can be a part of helping you to deepen your relationship with God. And I also would love to send you some encouragement as you journey with Him. The promises of God are meant to give us a present comfort for this future hope. But life is not always that simple. When the promises of God don't actually match up with what you're experiencing in real life, then what are you supposed to do? So today we're going to look at the life of Sarah. And if you have read the book of Genesis, then you know that Sarah can relate to us a little bit too well. So I'll be paraphrasing a lot during this video, so I would encourage you to read through the book of Genesis starting in chapter 11 about Sarah's life. And so let's get into it. So the first thing that we learn about Sarai, who's later named Sarah, is that she's childless. She's Abraham's wife, and they are actually traveling to Canaan, but they end up stopping at this place called Haran. So Sarai and Abram are nomadic people traveling from place to place. So during that time, there was a famine in the land, and so Sarai and Abram stopped in Egypt. Abram knew that his wife was very beautiful, and he asked her to just say, "Hey, you're my sister," because he was afraid that the Egyptians would kill him because Sarai, and I hope I don't do that throughout this whole video, because Sarai is so beautiful. And so that's what she does. She lies about who she is and goes along with the story that she's Abram's sister. In return, Abram gets all of this stuff. He gets all of these animals. He gains all of these people. But God is not pleased with what they're doing. And so He sends this disease and inflicts it on all of the palace in Egypt. And so it was a whole big mess because they decided to lie. So at this point, what would I say about Sarai? She is the stand by your man kind of girl, which is cool, except she's also a liar. So we're going to fast forward to Genesis 16. And so at this point, Sarai still doesn't have any kids. And so what she does is that she says to her husband, Abram, she says, "Hey, Abram, I still don't have any kids. God has not allowed me to have any children. And so what I need you to do so that I can have children and to build a family, I need you to go and get my slave pregnant, so maybe then I can build a family through her." So her slave is named Hagar, and Abram does exactly what Sarai asked him to do. So he sleeps with Hagar. Hagar ends up getting pregnant, but after Hagar realizes that she's pregnant, she is really not a fan of Sarai. And so because of that whole situationship, Sarai gets upset with Abram because now Hagar doesn't like her. Which, why would she? Right? Like, you're using her to build your family. So let's think about that. So Abram is like, "You know what, Sarai? She's your slave. Do what you want with her." And so Sarai is like really treating her terribly. Like, she is not being kind to her. And so Hagar ups and leaves. She says, "What you got to know is that I don't have to deal with this." And so she ups and leaves. So the really beautiful thing about Hagar, and this is really a side note because I'm not necessarily talking about Hagar in this moment, but the beautiful thing about Hagar's story is that the Bible says that God saw her, right? And so God saw her, he took care of her. Her story is actually really, really sweet. And even through her challenges, God gave her this comfort that no one else really could have. And so if y'all want to hear me talk about anything else about Hagar, just comment down in the comments and then maybe I'll do a video about her too. So Hagar gives birth to Ishmael, and at this time, Abram is 86. So 13 years later, Abram is now 99, and he has this moment with God where God is revealing this huge promise to him. So he says to Abram, he's like, I'm no longer going to call you Abram, but you're now Abraham. And Sarai also has a new name. I want you to call her Sarah. So this is the time that God actually tells Abraham that he will have a son, and he will have that son with Sarah. And so let's remember that Sarah is well past the childbearing age. So the Bible says, then one of them said, I will surely return to you about this time next year, and Sarah, your wife, will have a son. Now Sarah was listening at the entrance to the tent, which was behind him. Sarah was past the age of childbearing, so she laughed. The Lord said to Abraham, why did Sarah laugh? Is anything too hard for the Lord? She got scared and then was like, now truly I can see Sarah over there being nosy. Okay, that's what I'm going to say. She's over there listening to a conversation that is not directed towards her, but it is about her. And Sarah, she gets scared and she's like, yeah, no, I didn't. Which that was another lie, because she did laugh, right? So you can expect a liar to be a liar, right? That is of her character. We have seen her lie before. And so then he goes on and he's like, yes, you did laugh. Like, we all know that you laughed. This is my favorite part of the story, okay? And so it says in Genesis 21, verse 1, it says, now the Lord was gracious to Sarah as he had said, and the Lord did for Sarah what he had promised. Sarah became pregnant and bore a son to Abram in his old age at the very time God promised him. Abram gave the name Isaac to the son Sarah bore him. So here are a few lessons or things I kind of picked up from Sarah's life. One, it actually matters who you marry. We know Abraham wasn't perfect. We know Abraham had his, his mess, fears, or whatever you want to call it. And he struggled with being honest, right? The other side to that is that everywhere, if you read throughout Genesis, everywhere that Abram stopped, he built an altar to the Lord. When you read through those passages, you see Abraham is constantly talking to God. And praying for people. And so, isn't that the kind of man you want? Somebody close to the Lord, someone who considers other people. Another lesson that we can learn from Sarah is that God is changing us and growing us in between, right? And so when I'm saying in between, I'm talking about the hope that you have, the time that it takes for the hope to come true, and then when God's promises are fulfilled. And so somewhere in between there, Sarah's faith grew. If you read in the New Testament, it talks about her being faithful. And I was like, wait, I don't remember her being faithful. I remember her laughing in doubt. But I'm going to read this, and it is in Hebrews. It says, and by faith, even Sarah, who was past childbearing age, wasn't able to bear children because she considered him faithful who had made the promise. So she's remembered for being faithful, whereas in Genesis, she was laughing, not believing in God's promises. Okay? The other lesson that I take from Sarah's story is that God is bigger than our mistakes. God still fulfilled his promises outside of her imperfections, right? And so God is bigger than our mistakes. When you look at 1 Peter, he gives her a shout out. And it's not like, don't be like Sarah. This is what it says. It says, your beauty should not come from outward adornment, such as elaborate hairstyles and the wearing of gold jewelry or fine clothes. Rather, it should be that of your inner self, the unfading beauty of a gentle and quiet spirit, which is of great worth in God's sight. For this is the way the holy women of the past, who put their hope in God, used to adorn themselves. They submitted themselves to their own husbands, like Sarah, who obeyed Abraham and called him her master. You are her daughters, if you do what is right and do not give way to fear. So as you think about Sarah's life, what promises are you holding on to that are requiring some patience? It's not easy to wait. You know, Sarah's life is one that is encouraging to read about, because it says that somewhere along the line, God was growing her into a faithful woman. What is God doing in your character right now as you wait? And so my hope is that you can focus on those things and not what you don't have. So what you got to know about God is that he is faithful to his promises. If you're looking to learn more about the character of God, check out this next video.